welcome. We are going to be jumping into an introduction to Revit, a little bit of a review from class, but hopefully you can look back on this if you need the help. So I am in Revit. I have opened up the home screen. Everyone, when they first open up Revit, is going to see this interface. You can see some recent files that previously I have opened or have as far as an option for sampling Revit files in Revit. Below is some families. Families, again, are very similar to W blocks in AutoCAD. We use them, especially as interior designers. Walls, floors, they're basically called out as categories, but furniture, equipment, structural columns, on and on and on and on and on. So we'll get into a discussion on families probably in the next video, but just to begin the process in working in Revit and how to begin, to the left you are going to select the menu New button. Of course, creates a new Revit project model file. And when you select New, you're going to get this pop-up window, New Project. It wants you to select a template file. We are always going to be selecting the Imperial Architectural Template. Unfortunately, I don't have any metric projects to work on yet, so we are focused in Imperial Architectural Template. We're going to be dealing with feet and inches. The reason why we're selecting architectural versus construction is architectural allows us to set up partial construction set, but also just set up a very basic 3D model, which is basically what we're going to start with here. So it's a great template to begin with, and one that you probably will be creating on your own or working with as you move on in your careers and work at either an architecture firm or an interior design firm or an engineering firm. What are we creating? We're creating a new project file. So I'm going to select OK after these two options are selected. And very much like I was telling you in class, Revit is a very large program. It is data-based. There are many backup files that are created, which of course we can change how many do get saved. But usually you are very aware by the system requirements of the program what your computer is capable of. So you are very aware of your video card, your RAM, and your processor speed. If there are glitches in Revit happening on your laptop or your desktop, you might want to look at those parts or pieces, or those pieces of hardware, I should say. If not, for me, I try to keep a minimum of software packages open, and it allows me just to focus, if you will. Hopefully that helps a little bit. From here, you are looking at the start of that architectural template, and you are looking at the interface. And probably the biggest thing that you notice, the biggest difference from AutoCAD to Revit is the viewport, if you will, that I'm moving around, is a white viewport, which you can change, but I'm going to keep it white just for reference and for basic template viewing. And some of the other things that you notice is the top panel and tab bar looks a little different. You are building systems in Revit, so we aren't really drawing lines, even though we can. You're literally building a wall system, a window system, a door system, a curtain wall system, and you're thinking about what you're building not just two-dimensionally, but at the same time three-dimensionally. And this is where the program excels and is used quite a bit because it's a time saver, if you will. So we're going to start off first by basically loading an AutoCAD file that we're going to use as a reference. And the best way to do that is pretty much going into the tab that is called Insert at the top. And we have two options or two ways that we can load an AutoCAD file. There's one that is called Link CAD, and there's another called Import CAD. I would like to focus mostly on linking a CAD drawing. What's wonderful about linking a CAD drawing is in the office, if somebody is still working on that CAD file, maybe field verifying, double checking dimensions, double checking anything and everything, they can edit that AutoCAD drawing, and because you have it linked, it will update automatically your Revit project file. So it's a really nice workflow from one team member to the other. So for the most part, I am only going to be using LinkCAD. So you select it. It will open up a pop-up window. It's taking me to my documents, but I have everything saved on my desktop under our folder in an AutoCAD file. So this is an AutoCAD file that I have shared with you. It is on Canvas. I will load it also here on YouTube, but it's a 2D cafe plan. I revised it in 2020. There is nothing fancy about this cafe project at all, which you have seen already with the last project we did in SketchUp, but I'm going to select it. At the very bottom of this window, there is a couple things that I want to point out. I'm not going to change anything below here, but you can actually change the colors if you prefer to work in black and white. I actually prefer to work in a color. I just don't want to work in all the colors like red, yellow, blue, green, kind of our standard colors that we've seen in AutoCAD. So I'm going to preserve it, but I'm going to show you how to change that. Layers, levels, I'm going to keep all on. Importing, auto detect. Origin point, again, keeping it simple, and placement is at level 1. Orient to view, correct lines as they're slightly off axis. Literally all of that is by default either selected or checked on, and I'm going to keep it as generic as possible here, so I'm going to say open. And you might notice in the upper right hand corner that if I zoom out, I can see my AutoCAD file loaded. As I select it, literally you can see that it will instantly, it kind of hibernates over a boundary box, if you will. So if I select it, all of the parts and pieces that were drawn in AutoCAD, all the objects are drawn, they get selected and they turn blue, and you'll see a little pin. The pin is obviously representing that it is locked. This AutoCAD file is loading based upon the origin point in AutoCAD, and just to reference, AutoCAD and Revit use the Cartesian coordinate system of axes X, Y, Z, so the origin point in AutoCAD can be referenced just the same here in Revit. So I am going to keep the location of where this cafe file is being linked or loaded. However, I am going to move these exterior elevation tags. This is standard by default part of the Revit template file. This literally will represent the start of elevations, exterior elevations for us, which we haven't built anything yet in Revit, but it's something that we want to keep. So for every project file I create and work in Revit, these building elevation tags are going to remain. And they represent north, south, west, and east, obviously our direction. And I'm just going to select them all, window selection, either a crossing window right to left or left to right, just like we would in AutoCAD. The reason why I'm doing a crossing window is I just want to make sure that I select all the parts and pieces. If I go ahead and snap, you can see that if I don't hold down the control key, I could be selecting the tip of the tag or the base of the tag. And I'm not ready to explain the details of it, but we are going to go there. Instead, I'm just going to select a crossing window. I'm going to move my cursor on top of one of the tags, and you can see immediately it turns to the Move Tool icon, which is great. That basically tells us I can just get up and move those directional tags around my AutoCAD file. If you need to zoom extents, ZA is the best way to do it, the quickest way if you're a typer. If not, we have a ton of off to the right tools, and your zoom options, zoom all to fit is basically ZA. So again, if you want to formally, so again, if I'm logged in and moved, I zoomed out a little bit and panned, I go back to zoom all to fit, whoops, zoom to fit, sorry, literally it'll zoom into my file. I usually just type ZA, it's just faster, but I'll always show you both directions. I have began a project file in Revit. I have made sure that it is set to an Imperial architectural template. I have loaded an AutoCAD drawing that you see right there, right smack in the middle. I have moved my exterior building elevation tags around my AutoCAD file. The only thing I want to do next, two things I want to do next, is I want to save this file before I go any further. And I also want to change my CAD drawing so that I'm not reading yellow, green, blue, all the different colors that I've set for layers in AutoCAD. I just want it to be one continuous color. But let's save first so I don't lose anything. Saving on our quick Axie toolbar at the top, we can just simply select our save option. Control S is, of course, quick save. And I am going to save this in the same folder you have been seeing. And this is assignment 3 for us. This is also a cafe, and I'm going to also add my last name to my file name. And Revit files, if I haven't already said this to you, previously, are RVT files. So be aware of that. There are backup files, which I'll show you at the end of this little video, but for the most part, your main project file in Revit is always going to be an RVT file. I'm going to select Save. Takes a minute or two. Of course, the larger the file, the longer it takes to save. And then I'm going to show you guys, how do I find out more information about this CAD file? How do I edit this CAD file? So in the upper right-hand corner, when you have the CAD file selected, and I should say CAD drawing, literally, it changes the color, obviously, to blue, so that's how you know it's instantly selected, but also you'll see a pin. But at the top of your interface, you will have a query button. If you open that up, you will get into an edit mode, and literally, like, let's say I don't know what the difference between that circle and that circle is, honestly. If I select one of the objects, it will bring up this import instant query, and it will tell you in AutoCAD what layer name that object is on. And because we are using our standard layer naming convention of 2 suffixes, 3 suffix, 4 suffixes, literally immediately I can see that this object is on a layer called I-column, and it's round and 1. So literally the first 2 suffixes tell me interior and they tell me column. So immediately I know what I'm building. Same thing for the other object, that circle there. Again, select it while you're in this query mode, and immediately it's telling me it's a piece of furniture, because fern, F-U-R-N, is of course short for furniture. And I, again, if I'm not familiar with the CAD drawing, most of the time I am because I'm the one that drew it, but sometimes I'm not, or I'm coming in on a project in mid phase. I obviously need to discover things. You can also turn layers off, or you can change the color, which I'm going to show you next. So I'm going to just pan on over here a little bit. Under our View tab, we have what's called, all the way to the left, what's called Visibility and Graphics. You can select this button, which will open up this window, and your CAD file, if you imported a CAD file or inserted a CAD file with Link CAD or Import CAD, is under this Imported Categories tab. And your CAD file, let me just stretch this out a little bit and open it up. This is your CAD file with all the layers that have been created back in AutoCAD. And we can override them, we can change the color, we can add pattern, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. You can also, to open up that window, type VV for Visibility and Graphics, or you can type VA, literally. So if, nope, actually VA is not working on my laptop, but it usually works on my desktop, so try that out. But VV, obviously, for our Visibility and Graphics, or again, just to point out, under the View tab in Revit, all the way to the left, your second icon, Visibility and Graphics, that allows you to take a look further into your CAD file. So imported categories, let me extend the naming, let me extend some of these options here so we can read some of these column names, and let me open up all the layers. So if I want to take all these layers and change them to a consistent color, because it's just easier to read, literally all you have to do is select your first layer, which most likely is layer 0, and then scroll on down, hold Shift, the Shift key, and then literally select the last layer. It will select all the layers. How you know they're selected is because they are blue, and the last layer that you selected next door under lines, probably projection surfaces lines, there will be an override button. It really doesn't matter that it falls under lines, because when you select this override button, it's going to bring up another pop-up window called Line Graphics. And under lines is 3 categories: pattern, color, or weight. I don't want to add a pattern to any of these objects drawn from AutoCAD. In fact, I don't think that would be read very well. I do not need to add any line weight to the AutoCAD files I've drawn. However, I do want to change the color. So I'm going to select where color is an option, this no override button. I'm going to select it. It's going to open up the color selector, and literally I am going to go ahead and I'm going to select a cool color versus a warm color. I tend to see cool colors faster than I do warm colors. A little easier on my eyes. Also, that's just personally me working. So again, if there's a color specific that you prefer, by all means, go for it. I'm trying to stay away from it being too dark. However, I probably would see this better. So you know what? It's between these 2 purple colors that I would choose, and I'm going to choose the darker one for this instance. I believe in class I did the lighter. It doesn't really matter, but it does matter as far as the extent of your tiredness of your eyes, and I tend to need a little bit of help. So I'm going to go for the darker. I'm going to hit OK. Again, I am just changing the color. I'm going to hit OK again on this Line Graphics pop-up window. I'm going to hit Apply to the Visibility and Graphics window. I'm going to hit OK, and you're going to see right away that I've just instantly turned the whole entire CAD drawing from orange, yellow, blue to standard colors, which were pretty bright, to just kind of a subdued deep purple. It's reading pretty well. So I think I can move forward, and I, of course, before I do anything further, which is another video, I want to save my project file. Something to note, and I want to mention and bring up that literally under your project files, your backup files, and I'll end with this. I've only been, I think this is probably at the most maybe a 10-minute video. I obviously named my file assignment 3A3 Cafe, my last name. Backup files, I only have 1 backup file that has automatically been made from Revit. Most of the time, by default, about 4 of them will be created. So as I keep going on and on and on and on and on, in my Revit main folder, I divide up my projects by project files, families, AutoCAD files if I'm loading them. There might be more like PDFs and such, but we've just started, so there's not too much to look at. Also, I want to just mention the size of some of your Revit files. I have not even drawn one wall or a floor, brought in a piece of furniture. All I have done is done a quick setup, and I'm already at 5 megs for my file size. So, remember, just to make sure, you might need to clean out some files or folders or back some work up. And being that we're at the end of the semester, you definitely want to make sure that you're backing up this project file at least in 3 locations, just so that, again, you're just safeguarding yourself for anything that could happen in the future. Okay, I am going to end this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you do, please like the video. That's actually helping me greatly. Please add a comment if you would prefer, and let me know how you're doing. I'm always on the other end of an email. I'm always on the other end of this YouTube video channel, and there are more videos on their way. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Ciao.